Howdy everybody, and today I'm going to be showing you how if statements function. Now I'm going to be using one of my old labs in my CSCE 111 class. Now, as you can see here, what this entire code is doing is taking three user inputs that are numbers and seeing if the certain numbers are less than one another. So let's go ahead and get started in showing how this works. As you can see, we have three different input variables. We have int user num1, int user num2, and int user num3. Now, for the sake of following along, let's go ahead and make some inputs for ourselves in the terminal. So let's input 5, 6, and 7. And now before I hit enter, we're going to go and manually check this ourselves to see if our logic checks out. Now, if we go down to this first if statement and see what it's asking, we can find out whether or not it will run through this if statement and print user num1. So let's see. It says if user num1 is less than user num2 and user num1 is less than user num3, it's going to go ahead and print user num1. Also note that if one of these conditions here are not true, then it's not going to run this if statement, but instead go ahead and check this else if statement and see if that's true. And if that else if isn't true, then it's just going to go ahead and run this else since there's no other possibilities within this code. Now, let's go ahead and look at that first if statement. So it says if user num1 is less than user num2, like I said beforehand. And so let's see. We had entered 5 for user num1 and 6 for user num2. 5 is less than 6. That is true. Now let's look at the other side of that and. User num1 is 5 and user num3 is 7. 5 is less than 7, and that is also true. So the code is going to end here and just print out user num1. So in the terminal below the 7, it's just going to print 5. And if I hit enter, you can see that it just indeed does print 5. Now let's get more wacky with the numbers and be a little bit quirky. So let's put in 13, 5, and 7. And let's reevaluate this manually once again. So user num1 is now 13, and user num2 is 5, which 13 is not less than 5. So immediately, this if statement is no longer valid, and now we're going to go and check this else if statement. Now, this else if asks if user num2 is less than user num1 and user num2 is less than user num3. Well, 5 is less than 13, that is true, and 5 is less than 7. So this code is going to end here and print user num2, or as I said prior, below that 7, it should just print 5. And if I go ahead and hit enter, you can in fact see that it just prints 5, proving the logic that we were confirming earlier with these if statements. Now, if I had gone through this again and one more time, had typed in 13, 12, and 9, we can already see that the first if statement is not true because 13 is not less than 12, so that if statement doesn't get checked. This else if sees if user num2 is less than user num1. That is true, 12 is less than 13, but then it asks if user num1 is less than, or user num2 is less than user num3, which 12 is not less than 9, so it must run this else statement, which would just print user num3. So if I hit enter, it should just print 9 below it, and as you can see, it prints 9. Now, this just gets scratching at the surface level of what if statements can do for you. So, as you've seen here and as I've come to show, if statements are a certain conditional that can fulfill any parameter, or in this case, condition that you put within it. So as long as the logic within these conditions are valid, you can do anything you want with these if statements. Like, for example, if you had a group of numbers like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and if you wanted to say if 1 is not equal to 4, then print correct, it would end up printing that, because yes, 1 is not equal to 4, and it would say that if statement is true. Now, I'll end it here to prevent further complications, but I hope you found this enjoyable and a little bit more insightful to what if statements and the other operators like else if and else can do for you within a code. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.